Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Last Minute FPL. This is the Gameweek 25 podcast. Hi, Vikas. How are you?
Good. It's been a long while since we have done one of those, and I've actually used a bit of this time to disengage, do some other things, but at the same time tracking some of the crucial double game week events that were going on at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of things happened since we last did an episode. I think the very next day there was a double game week announcement that affected our transfer and chip strategy. So we'll go into all of that. But I think, yeah, both FPL wise, it was a really good week for all the three teams. And also, it was a good time to switch off because the eternity between the first part of the game week and the second part of the game week meant that it was basically like an international break. So, welcome break.
Yeah, I didn't even know that the Liverpool game was on today until I got a notification on my phone, and then I realized the game week's still going on. But what a nice bonus by getting Moyes. We'll probably get into it, but I'm pretty happy this week.
Yeah, I think it couldn't have worked out any better for you, and for me too. Like, I mean, I think we both definitely got lucky with making early transfers and being forced into some decisions. But we'll go into it. Let's start with last week's team, and again, AI team with 130 points, getting the most out of all three of us, up about 500 ranks to 6.7k. Yeah, 130 points and 87 of those are from Mo Salah. It activated the triple captain. It didn't move to an assistant manager because it already had three Liverpool players and two Everton players, and it decided to not pick Moyes for this week and go with the triple captain instead because that had more EV. But yeah, I think it's mainly just Salah, right, and some double game week players returning.
Yeah, good choice. I think a lot of people I don't think predicted that the triple captaincy would do better than the assistant manager. So the fact that both the AI team and its own analysis and you went with the triple captaincy, I think that's a big win for both teams.
Yeah, I think the decision basically came down to I mean, we knew Salah is a good triple captaincy option, but with two back-to-back double game weeks, and assistant manager being a 3 week chip, what it meant is that you could get 5 fixtures out of a single chip. And it just so happened that it was a bit convoluted for the AI team to get slot, and Salah had more EV than Moyes. And for me, I was in a and actually, like, let's go into my team now. So the one reason why I didn't play the assistant manager chip was because I had Dominic Calvert-Lewin on the bench. What that meant is if I wanted to play the AM chip, I had to take a hit because I made an early transfer to get Pickford. So I had triple Liverpool and triple Everton, and it just didn't make sense to take a hit and end up where everyone else is. So it was like a free gift in a way of going differential, and that differential being Salah triple captain. I think it just happened to work out for my team in this way. I think playing the assistant manager was definitely the right move because you're getting 5 fixtures out of it. And now whenever I do play the assistant manager chip, I will have one fixture less. But yeah, I got 130 points as well. And
That's
again,
insane. 87 points from Salah is ridiculous. It reminds me of that mega haul that Alexis Sanchez had some time back. I think it's one of those times I had triple captain Sanchez and at that point in time, I think triple captaincy shot up in my estimation in terms of how powerful that chip was, even though later on it kind of failed pretty much every season after that.
yeah, I think yeah, that same season I had triple captain Kane for his 31 points in a double game week. So definitely good memories from the triple captaincy. But yeah, I gained about more than 100,000 places, and once again the players who returned were all the Liverpool and Everton defenders from the first of the two double game weeks. Otherwise, it was basically just a Salah show. Cool. Moving on to your team, and this is a brave call that you made, going with Moyes for the assistant manager. I think again your hand was also forced by early transfers, but him getting 22 points, that is an incredible return.
Yeah, I think part of it was definitely the fact that I already had three Liverpool players, but also I just wanted to have three Liverpool players because I just couldn't make up my mind between and now maybe it seems obvious because Slot still did got more than Gakpo and Trent, but I just thought that Gakpo and Trent could return as well, whereas I didn't know that I wanted three Everton players. I didn't know where to get, so I was more comfortable getting Moyes in. And I think the predictions in terms of the points itself wasn't too different between Slot and Moyes, so I was pretty okay with going for Moyes. The disadvantage going with Moyes is not as much playing out in this week as compared to the following weeks because it is going to cost me transfers in the future game weeks, which can be saved, especially with the plan coming up.
But yeah, I think the table bonus really came in for you. 8 points for a draw. That's basically like a striker getting a goal and bonus. And then add on top of that points for the 2 goals. And then the 4-0 win was another really high scoring one. And yeah, I think Endai also coming through for you. Definitely all your major moves that you made in the last week seem to have worked out.
Yeah, coming through, but now both of us have an Everton striker injured in the bench for the foreseeable future, seems like.
Yeah, I mean that's just the nature of Everton strikers. But at least like you got your 9 points in the double game week, and I'm pretty sure
The
you.
right striker to get seemed to be better.
Yeah, I mean that's a very tough call to make because and I was the one who took the penalty as well before the double game week, so it seemed like he would be the player to go for. Um, but yeah, Beto getting scoring in both fixtures. I think a brace in the first game and a goal today. Um, but yeah, 126 points and you've jumped
Small,
500,000.
small regret is getting rid of Monos, who did well for an assist. Seems so far back. He outscored Trent over 2 weeks, but there's no way that I would have not done the same move.
Yeah, you had to get Trent before the double. Also, he was injured, so he didn't play today except coming on in the end. And he has another double coming up. And add on top of that, Munoz will blank in game week 29. So I think that you had to. You're pretty much getting 4 fixtures. And now Trent is back. So I think you made the right call there.
Makes sense.
But how was spreading the money otherwise? Like Gakpo returned. I think Mbumo, this good fixtures are coming up, so there's still time for that. Your double game week players
But
worked out.
it clearly also shows in the rank. The green arrow, I know it's the assistant manager, but there's just a lot more flexibility in terms of the number of moves that are possible in the team with good players. I don't have to scrounge around with those 5 million, which I had to do, with midfield. I had to have a Saad, Rogers, Enzo Fernandez, and I have just way more options, which, I mean, it really helps. Even though Haaland, if you look at his last 4 5, it's still, he's doing really well, but it's just not worked out with the price. And I'm really happy to spread the funds finally and join pretty much the rest of the serious FPL world.
Yeah, and I mean, even though you played the chip, pretty much everyone would have played some chip or the other this week. So I think the safety scores were super high. They were like 120 points or 115 points. So beating that is, and then also you beat it by a lot because you gained almost 500k ranks. But yeah, let's look at where how the mini league standings have shaped up. So even though the AI team got 130 points, Conte Kante also got 130 points with a Moyes assistant manager. So it's still very tight at the top, just 3 points in it. And there is a bit of a gap to third now. I think both of us have definitely made some gains. I've gone up to about mid-table. I'm 15th in the table now at 500k, and you've also gained a couple of spots, going from 3 million to 2.5 million, and you're 3 points behind Pelegation for that.
And 50 points from the Magic 25th place in the table. So that's still in my sights. Let's see how that comes. This gripping battle is the one to watch out for.
Yeah, and Tamer FC also seems to have had a great week in 25th. So that's not become any easier with 129 points. But yeah, I think a lot of high scores, most managers getting above 100. One of those weeks where, like, even if someone didn't triple captain Salah, they would at least have him captain and get either Slot or Moyes, who both got double digit returns. So yeah, I think good week all around. Cool. Let's look at some of the games that happened last week now. I know many of them feel like an eternity ago, but the week actually started with Nottingham Forest beating Brighton 7-0 with Chris Wood getting a hat trick. I think at that point, it just, like, I just couldn't believe what was happening. They just destroyed Brighton. Like, Brighton, we know are defensively susceptible, but Chris Wood is having a season of a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, this is so unexpected. I still can't believe the scoreline. Maybe the most unexpected scoreline of the season. 7-0, especially after I think Forest came into this from a heavy defeat as well.
Yeah.
It's quite a turnaround there, and also Forest scoring so many goals, especially when, from a data perspective, they haven't looked so good. It's also pretty surprising. Um, yeah, Chris Wood owners rejoice, just as they've been doing the entire season, I guess.
Yeah, and I think a lot of managers actually moved away from Wood, like to players like Gakpo for the double, and also Forest fixtures were turning, form was also dipping. But yeah, they seem to still be going strong. Um, the other games early from last week were the two double game week teams, both Liverpool and Everton winning to nil. I can speak about the Liverpool game. Bournemouth were actually really good. They were very unlucky not to score, and Semenyo hit the post twice. He had some good opportunities. But yeah, in the end, Liverpool did create enough chances, and Salah was clinical in taking them, and that made the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk briefly on the Chelsea West Ham game. It was a pretty tight game. I think I had predicted that not on a good run, and I don't see this as an easy game, and it was a pretty difficult game. It's a late goal to win the match, and Chelsea don't look convincing at all. I think they got knocked out of the FA Cup as well. I seriously think, apart from some of the really bad performing teams, which we'll see later on in this slide, I'm not confident about any result because it's really shaky right now. The foundations are shaky.
And Nicholas Jackson is injured for a couple of months as well.
There is no striker at the moment because there's no Jackson. Mark Q, who's the second choice striker, is also injured. And Kunku, Enzo Maresca said, is not really a striker. He's probably going to play there, and he was quite uninspiring in the games he's played up front. So, yeah, it's got to be Kunku. And if he doesn't fire, then Chelsea's in big trouble. If he does go off, then there's a good 6 million asset who's out of position in FPL.
Would you get rid of Palmer? So with the FA Cup results, now Chelsea will likely not have any double game week for the rest of the season. Maybe for the short term, Palmer is a keep because he'll have a fixture in blank game week 29. But at his price point, he has fallen in price, and he hasn't hit those big hauls that he was earlier.
I think it only makes sense to get Haaland. If you can get Haaland by selling Palmer, then I would say go for it. But otherwise, I don't really see another player, especially with Saka being injured. There's still so much money, and given the fact that without any money constraints, Palmer's still a really good player to have because he's influential. I mean, it's very high probability that even if Chelsea lose games and they score goals, Palmer's going to be involved because there are just so many ways he can get points.
Yeah, and speaking of elite midfielders in FPL, Bruno Fernandes played in a defensive role again for Man United against Palace. He's now in the holding two position and not at all exciting. And I have him in my team. Have had him for the past couple of weeks, unfortunately. Things not looking good for United as usual. They were very lucky to scrape an FA Cup win, but at least the cup competitions are kind of keeping some hope alive. If they win the Europa League, they could make it to the Champions League. Otherwise, the league looks done and dusted. And
what do you think about Ahmad? Is he an option?
I think there are better options. It's just that United are so unpredictable. Like, you can't rely on them to create chances on a consistent basis. And like, even at that price point, there are enough, like, Bournemouth midfielders. Bournemouth is looking great. They have an amazing run of fixtures. You have Kluivert, you have Semenyo, you have Otara. Even Rogers has a double game week coming up. Mbumo's also back on the menu. So I don't think that there is room for it. Like we don't need, like you said, there is enough money going around that you don't need that kind of a budget player. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't personally go there.
Fair point. The Brentford Spurs game looks really funny because the result reads 2-0 Spurs, but the underlying data is 2-0 or, or 2-1 Brentford. I didn't catch that game, but this is a very impressive result just from the fact that Brentford at home has been one of the most difficult fixtures.
Yeah, and I mean, after that, Spurs had a pretty terrible few days, getting knocked out of both cup competitions. They lost a 1-0 lead to Liverpool, and the defense is pretty much wiped. They don't have any players, even in attack. Solanke is injured, Maddison is injured, Brennan Johnson is injured. So they're almost just waiting and hoping on the Europa League. Maybe if they can. Probably when Romero is fit or Van de Ven is fit, they shouldn't bring them back in the Premier League. Maybe just keep them wrapped up in cotton wool for the Europa League games. So from an FPL perspective, maybe Son when the blank fixture comes around, or if they have a good fixture here and there. But otherwise, I wouldn't go for anyone. The interesting game here, the big game, Arsenal Man City, 5-1. But if you look at the XG, Arsenal have created just one. That's very surprising because in the entire second half, Arsenal just killed City off on the counter. Like once the game went from 1-1 to 2-1, it was just very simple for Arsenal. And I think it was a very cathartic win given, like ever since Haaland asked Arteta to be humble, City has been on a downward spiral. And it seemed like a pretty big moment for Arsenal fans. And the players, they celebrated pretty aggressively, and it seems to have meant a lot.
I think I saw this somewhere that the Arsenal DJ after the game played the song "Humble."
Yeah,
he really took that moment, and that is quite something.
Yeah, and even Lewis Kelly, when he scored his goal, he went and did the Haaland celebration, for which Carragher also gave him a lot of stick. Personally, I think it's okay. He's just a youngster trying to show some personality. But yeah, I mean, it feels like a recipe for disaster when City is back maybe next season and like Haaland is extra motivated to destroy them. He did score in this game.
Watch out for.
Yeah.
when Haaland is back to his usual self and City are.
I mean, Haaland has actually been playing well. He's been scoring. He scored 2 against Madrid. He scored against Arsenal. I think he has almost 20 goals in the league.
Goals,
Yeah.
This season in the Premier League itself.
Yeah, apart from Salah, he's still doing better than Wood. Which, yeah, I mean, definitely City are looking better. They played well against Madrid. You can't do anything when Madrid scores 2 goals in the last minute to win a game. But given the season they're having, I think they did well. But we should talk about Everton. Probably both games. Because of 4-0 win against Leicester, where they completely dominated from start to finish, creating a lot of chances. And then against Liverpool, I think today's game, Liverpool were very poor. Like it wasn't like the Bournemouth game where they created a lot of chances. They in fact got very lucky to even draw the game. And yeah, it was basically Salah pulling out a goal from nothing, and even the other goal was like a cross into a crowded box, and McAllister got a head on it. But Everton had a lot of chances, and they defended extremely solid. Good signs for Moyes and Everton.
Yeah, I agree. And just like that, with Liverpool drawing, Forest are just 10 points behind on their title challenge.
That's incredible. Like that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I think Arsenal probably will have some motivation now that Liverpool dropped points. But I think that gap should see them through unless there is a staggering collapse of sorts. Yeah. Cool. Let's move on now to next week's games. So once again, it's a double game week. So this was the announcement that basically sent the FPL world into chaos just before the double game week 24 deadline. And a lot of assistant manager chips were activated. So the double here is basically Villa versus Liverpool. So once again, Liverpool has a tricky away game as the second fixture in the double game week. The first one is Liverpool at home to Wolves. And there are a lot of similarities to the double that Villa have, right? To what Everton had in the previous game week. One good simple fixture at home to Ipswich, and then a table bonus game to a big team, but at home. And Villa have been excellent at home. They've lost only once all season, and that was to Arsenal. So is Emery a no-brainer for you from Moyes?
I think if you have Moyes, it's a no-brainer to move to Emery. Unless you have more free transfers and you can do some hokey pokey and pull out a Liverpool player and get slot, but it's a no-brainer. I don't think it's worth even doing that, even if you have the transfers. Because, like you said, the ceiling is high with the second game, and the first game is an expected result to get a win. So, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer if you have Moyes.
Makes sense. Any other game that catches your eye? The new Man City Newcastle game will be interesting. Like City's defense hasn't been reliable as such, and it'll be interesting to see
Wish
how
I
this
had some Arsenal forward players or midfielders, and for the Leicester game, seems like a glaring hole in my team. Just looking at these fixtures, but apart from that, I think feel pretty well covered. Um, Definitely the Villa is the interesting team because Liverpool, I would anticipate most people already are maximized either in terms of the manager or three players. Watkins was very interesting for this week. I was considering Watkins, but I think he does have some injury concerns, which takes him out of the equation.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't break my team to get a Villa player in, even though they have a double, mainly because their fixture run is not great, even after the double, and then they blank in 29. So, unless you know you're free hitting and you have some extra transfers that are luxury moves, maybe you can get a defender, but then Villa has defensive issues and injury issues currently that don't make their defense super exciting. Many of us have Morgan Rogers already as a bench option, so I think you can just play him. And yeah, Watkins is not someone worth bringing in unless we know for sure that he's going to start. And even then, probably Isak is a fair hold.
So actually, for this week, initially before it was going to be announced as a double game week, the planned transfer that I had was moving Sar out and getting a Bournemouth player like Kluivert or or Tara. Now that I'm getting Emery, I think that's again another miss given the double game week and the fixture that Bournemouth has this week.
Yeah, I think you've definitely gained enough points with Moyes to be able to use four of them if you really wanted. But yeah, I think Bournemouth is the team to target this week. I'm personally looking. I already have Semenyo, but I might look into bring one more player, maybe a defender. They have a great fixture run from now, and it's a good time to jump on them considering they're playing Southampton. And remember, Bournemouth just beat Forest 5-0, and Forest is such an informed team, and I think Bournemouth is probably the most attacking team, both in terms of form and across the season. So it's not just a flash in the pan.
I think I might just wait one more week. I definitely want a Bournemouth player, but I'm not convinced about getting one for a hit.
Yeah, probably not worth the hit for sure. But at their price point, I think it's a low risk option to jump on them. It's like
Agreed. Yeah, if you have the transfers, I think getting a Bournemouth midfielder seems like a really strong option.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Brighton had March, Mitoma, and McAllister. It's this similar price points, 5.1 to 6 million. So good options. And I think other players who may be carrying over from the double game week, Everton players playing against Palace away, it's fine.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
See no reason to get rid. If you have a striker other than Beto, then unfortunately that striker is injured, so it just takes a spot on the bench.
Yeah, I mean Calvert-Lewin's been chilling there for a couple of weeks now for me, and I don't know when I'll be able to get rid of him. Cool. Interesting. Other interesting game. Maybe not from an FPL perspective, but Spurs United. Very unpredictable game. Anything could happen. Wouldn't be surprised with a 4-0 either way. So it will be an interesting game to see. Cool. Moving on. So Yeah, I think because a lot of us have the assistant manager chip active, and many people like me considering to play the assistant manager chip, on the left we basically have the projected goals and clean sheet odds for every single team, and on the right you have projected assistant manager points. Once again, slot, not much between slot and Emery. I think the uh, win probability for Liverpool against Villa away is just 52%. So 48% of the time, Emery is getting 8 points or above. And if you're lucky, he can, like, he could get the entire 16-point result for a win. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like such a high risk option looking at this.
Yeah, I think the real important game owning Emery is the Ipswich game.
Yeah.
Villa cannot screw that up because that is the big risk, because you do expect Slot to get that win over Wolves.
Yeah, it is a potential banana peel game because Ipswich they beat Southampton last week. It's not what you'd like to see going into a double game week like this. But yeah, I'm in the position where I could get either of them. I'm personally considering I need to make a transfer out of a player to generate some funds to do it. Ideally, I want to move someone who has a blank in 29 out because it is tight for me in terms of number of players. I'm considering Van Dijk out to a Bournemouth defender like Kirkes and getting in, say, Slot. But I could go the upside route and get Emery and maybe keep Van Dijk for another week just to have more doublers. Yeah, I guess it depends on my mood. Maybe I've already gambled enough and got a good return with Salah, so I might just go Slot and then switch to Arteta next week with West Ham, and then to Maresca with Southampton. But that's all like boring picks. So I am considering keeping the assistant manager for game week 36 and just leaving it to see where I am in the table and maybe making some interesting high risk, high reward options.
Yeah, I think this definitely seems like high reward, moving those managers around. The risk here is, or not risk, maybe you'll be able to manage it, but a similar strategy might involve others having to play a free hit in the blank game week, which might be okay because I don't know if there are other opportunities. There are going to be other opportunities to play that free hit, and that might be the call to see whether it's worth chasing that upside with the manager transfers.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think the free hit and wildcard comes down to one of two things. So currently, with the way the doubles have been rearranged, game week 29 is definitely going to be a blank game week for Newcastle, Palace, Liverpool, and Villa. Game week 33 will be the big double game week where most of us would probably want to play the bench boost. So if you can navigate 29 without a free hit, you would probably wildcard in, say, game week 31 and bench boost in 33. The alternative is if you play the free hit in 29, then you would have to navigate blank game week 34 without using a free hit. So in that case, you would dead end to 34 and wildcard out of it in 35. So for my team, it doesn't, when I already have 7 or 8 players playing in game week 29, forcing a free hit doesn't seem like it's the optimal move. So playing the manager, I mean, I can use the transfers on managers before that instead of building a blank game week 29 team with transfers. So that's my thinking. But yeah, I mean, I think this thought process will go down to the wire probably to the deadline.
I think part of the decision making here, if people are in positions such as yourself, is taking those chip strategies and the double game weeks into account as well.
Yeah. Cool. Let's move on to the fixture ticker. Like we said, Bournemouth is right at the top. 5 really good looking games. I think Spurs away is marked as medium, but I wouldn't consider it that. Then interestingly, second is Everton. So coming out of the double, they still have some good fixtures. So if you have your Pickford or your Mikalenko, there's still good options. And Brentford again, like you've got Mbumo in. I think it's a good timing to get someone like that in.
Yeah, I think from what I'm seeing here and just generally how my team's building, the only team that I'm targeting for the next few weeks is Bournemouth till 28. Because one, I don't have Bournemouth players, and two, the fixtures are not very appealing beyond Bournemouth. Maybe Brentford, like you said.
Mhm.
But I also already have Mbuemo, so I'm not sure I want to add more there. Man United was interesting to me because there's Leicester, West Ham, Ipswich and Leicester in the next five. But again, like the inconsistency bothers me.
Yeah.
So I think my idea is just Bournemouth for the next few weeks, and then in 29, I do want to kind of target Bulls and Forest. Those are the two teams that I want to target and make some surgery so that I can get those 11 players out by saving some transfers for 29.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Basically, many of us are loaded on Newcastle players. The fixtures do take a turn. They have City, Forest, Liverpool, and then they go into a blank in 29. So, especially if you're tripled up on Newcastle, say with Gordon, Isak, or even Hall. And then, like, many of us have Palace players as well with Munoz and Eze or Sar. Um, yeah, I think Palace still have some good fixtures remaining, so that those transfers can wait. But if you can find like Gordon to a Bournemouth midfielder, for example, or Hall to a Bournemouth defender, I think that's a good high upside move over the next 4 5 weeks.
Yeah. I still think it's worth keeping Isak because of just how much his price has risen.
Yeah.
But depending on the team structure, definitely maybe like Hall to this thing. Or in my team personally, I think Sar has been quite uninspiring. So I do want to get, he is my outlet to go Bournemouth because the rest of the midfield looks fine. And defense, I would like a defender as well, but the way I'm thinking about defense is waiting for 29 to get a Forest defender finally. Who,
Yeah.
yeah, like an Aina.
Yeah, I think that's a good move and good time to get them in as well. But yeah, about Isak's price rise, yeah, I was checking when I was considering selling him for Watkins. He's risen by like 1.5 million in like 10 weeks, which is crazy.
I think I'd lose 0.5 by just selling him because I got him at 8.5 or so, and he's like 9.5 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, he's risen like 1.2 million since I bought him, which is absurd. Yeah. Cool. Let's move on. Yeah, and the other interesting thing is keep an eye on the Game Week 29 blanks because, for example, the AI team does have a lot of players from Game Week 29. So it's probably like better to just optimize for the weeks preceding it and then just go with a free hit in 29. I know last season's Game Week 29 free hit was an absolute disaster with many of us getting 20 points or even lesser, but I think that's a one off, and usually it does work out well to play it in the blank.
I think I'm going to build as well, just because I feel like I can get 11 players, even though Greaves would be one of the 11.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's still time. That's why I want to save transfers to 29 and see how it kind of shapes out.
Yeah, even if you can somehow get to 9 or 10 players, it may not be worth the jump to do the free hit. I think the AI team is in a terrible spot. It has like 5 players. And if it focuses all its transfers on 29, it may not be putting out good teams in the next few weeks. But that's probably a decision for next week because it looks at a 4 week window in front. So next week we'll be able to know more about that. Cool. Let's take a look at the attacking data for teams for the past 6 matches. Yeah, looks like City is like really moving towards the top right. We saw them make some movement, and also Bournemouth and Forest surprisingly after their win against Brighton, scoring a lot of goals. But yeah, Liverpool continue to do extremely well.
Yeah, pretty much since it's the last six, Forest being probably is the biggest mover given their 7-0 expected to move right there. In terms of the teams that are not very inspiring and the teams that I'm looking at is Man United, still not kind of showing some sort of positivity in attacking data. So this does, because I was considering Man United midfielders versus Bournemouth midfielders, and looking at this graph, there's just no comparison.
Yeah, no comparison at all. And one thing that's interesting is Arsenal actually look like they have worse expected data than United. They've just converted a lot of it, which is something to keep an eye on. I mean, they did score 5 against City, and that's what's pushing their conversion up. But in terms of chance creation, they're so far behind. Like Chelsea, for example, Chelsea is still creating over 2 goals a game, and conversion is the issue. Uh,
I think Brentford's also pretty good given where we saw them in the fixture pickup. Their underlying data is good. Maybe they can outperform their underlying data going forward, which would then imply goals for Mbuemo, Vissa. So not a bad option.
Yeah, and seeing this, I would also avoid making moves for Villa players, even though they have a double. Like if you already have someone like Rodgers, keep him, but it's probably not worth it given the tough fixture run.
Okay. And the blank.
Yeah. Yeah, so to summarize, I would say get Bournemouth and Brentford and avoid United and maybe Villa.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on to defense now. Yeah, here I was interested to see where Bournemouth lay on the table, and it is fairly respectable. Like bottom left are the good defenses, conceding less goals and less chances. And Bournemouth aren't exactly that bad, and good fixture run means that you can give that a little bit of tax and push it a little further. Southampton, of course, off the charts in a bad way, but Palace also having some really good data.
Yeah, does make me regret that Nuno's decision, but I just thought amongst Robinson and Hall might be the weakest. So got rid. So I think still a great option given where Palace are in this chart.
And in the fixtures. And in the fixtures as well. Palace have good fixtures. Yeah.
Everton popping up left here is also a good sign given that I'm sure a lot of people have picked for maybe an Everton defender, so there's no rush getting them out.
Makes sense. Yeah, and Spurs, United continue to, and Chelsea interestingly seem to be drifting further and further to the right.
And Sanchez got dropped. I think that was a prediction that again we had in the previous discussion.
Yeah.
That's not always inspiring, right? It's not inspiring that one of the starting 11 keeper gets dropped in the middle of the season. It just shows defensive frailty, and it's not even for Jorgensen. He has to kind of get used to the Premier League. It's not that he's just going to suddenly outperform Sanchez. So a lot of issues right now in the backline for Chelsea, given the injuries as well.
Yeah, and one thing that stands out to me here is that if you look at where Ipswich and West Ham and Southampton are, these are some of the teams that assistant manager Chip is likely to be played against in the next couple of weeks. So Villa against Ipswich, good sign. They're conceding more than 2.5 goals a game. Arsenal against West Ham next week. And then you also have Chelsea versus Southampton the week after that. So maybe those are the three managers I should go with. Emery, Arteta and Maresca. And yeah, like where Villa are on this table, they're not exactly a easy defense to score against for Liverpool. So maybe going slot, especially by sacrificing a double game week player, seems like a bit of a risk with just 52% chance of winning that game. If you're going slot, you definitely want those 2 wins. And they are showing some signs of fragility, Liverpool. They did play a second string squad in both Champions League and FA Cup, but they lost those games, and it can break your momentum a bit. And now they've dropped points in the league. So yeah, maybe it's not the safe option it was.
Yeah, I think it'll be close between Emery and Slot. I just feel if I had the option, I'd still go Slot. I mean, if there's an option to pick one, I'd go Slot because I feel like if Villa do not get that win against Ipswich, it could be an absolute disaster with Emery. The downside with Emery is pretty bad, and the upside is very good. Slot has that nice middle ground.
Yeah, and Liverpool did smash Villa in the reverse fixture. Like Villa's defense also isn't looking great. They'll definitely be favourites. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Round 2 of Liverpool versus table bonus. Today was crazy. Like Moyes, I think with the 98th minute goal, Moyes gained like 9 points with just that one goal, and Slot lost like 3 points. So like you effectively gained 12 points with one move. Like these swings are
Yeah.
pretty crazy in this with this chip.
Yeah, table bonus is pretty wide, especially, I mean, if there's a win, then that's even more. It's
Yeah,
another 500 on this. It's pretty crazy.
yeah. Cool. Moving on to the position wise analysis, we'll start with the forwards. Once again, there is a double game week in play. So Gakpo is right at the top. And he has been starting every game. So I think that's a good sign. If you have Gakpo, just keep him. Isak still has a very good projected points, even though he's playing against City next. Darwin and Watkins also up there because of double game week, but we can't really predict their game time. And in terms of the stats, Awani is a bit of an outlier in terms of the chances that he's getting and creating. And Chris Wood, of course, is the outlier in terms of returns. No surprises there.
Yeah. Looking at this, I think I'm pretty happy with just Gakpo and Isak all the way up to 29. And then pretty much my targets are in this list, which looks a bit uninspiring, to be honest. Um, It's just Wood and Cunha. I think they're the targets for me in Game 29. Until then, maybe Visa, like we spoke about, but it's not very inspiring.
Yeah, especially because you already have Mbumo. Probably it's not a move that's needed. Cool. And Calvert Lewin once again at the bottom of the graph. Like just reminding me every week by just making it to the top 20 strikers and showing me what a stupid decision it was to get him in. But Arsenal have a lot of injuries. Like if you look at this list, Calvert Lewin is injured, Nicholas Jackson's injured, Havertz is probably out for a couple of months, Gabriel Jesus is out.
Yeah. I mean, it's really slim. The forward options
Yeah.
are very slim, and that too, then you can't go with players like Darwin,
Yeah.
with that good starts. If you really look at the 90 minutes as well, it's not many, honestly.
Yeah, even like Muniz, for example, like you don't know how much these people play. Cool, and that probably means Haaland will be back on the menu. I know you just got rid of him, but like in a few weeks, especially around the blank, I think Haaland will start becoming back on the menu just because there will be the money to go around. Like Salah will have a blank, and I don't know how many managers will be brave enough to make that switch. And whoever's free hitting will definitely have Haaland, and
Yeah, definitely.
I think he has Brighton at home that week, and Palmer has Arsenal. So it'll probably be a week for. I know you don't want to think about going back to him as just after
I will
getting.
be captaining Chris Wood. I'll be doing what everyone else did the whole season and battle Haaland with my Wood.
Cool. Let's look at midfielders now. And yeah, of course, in terms of projections, by far and away, by more than 10 points ahead of Palmer now. Of course, it's because of the double game week, but it just looks bizarre. Salah with 32 EV in the next 4 game weeks. And then ahead of all the other double game week players is Palmer. And then the 3 Liverpool mids. Then you have Bournemouth mids, Mbumo and Gordon.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. Player that I do want really badly for this week, Kluivert, but he'll just have to wait one more week. And Bournemouth already have Liverpool players, obvious because of the double game week. So good list. I wish we can be a bit more creative, but again, even here, midfielders, there are more options, but given how the fixtures are and the double game weeks, I think there is some convergence in terms of the options to really consider.
Makes sense. And looking at the graph of the top few midfielders, it's a bit I would say sparse. I think the filters of the top 20 players haven't really thrown up any of our interesting players. I think the outliers are once again Foden and Kluivert and Savio getting a lot of the returns. And in terms of players who are a little unlucky, it's probably Palmer and Madueke and maybe Sarabia.
I think we have to point out where Palmer is in this chart. Lower left bottom is not a great place to be.
To be
He's
fair,
riding a bit based on his
yeah.
potential and what he's done in the past, but it's not inspiring reading.
To be fair, this is restricted to the top 20 midfielders, so even the fact that he's still in it. But yeah, I mean, he was someone who you would expect to see on the top right. So it is a bit of a surprise. And the other surprise, I think, is Salah. To not see him far and away up in the top right. I think he has calmed down a bit in the recent weeks,
No.
uh, except for this particular game week where he got a lot of returns. But he did it with not too many chances. So cool. Moving on to defenders. Once again, it's a Liverpool clean sweep, like the entire back four. And then you have the Arsenal defenders who have Leicester coming up. And then you have your cheap defenders like Kirkes, Munoz, and Robinson. I think Hall probably slipped out because he has the City game and then the blank coming up. But yeah, Gabriel, Saliba, and Timber seem like good long-term holds, especially with the fixture in the blank game week as well.
I think I definitely made a mistake getting rid of Hall and not Munoz. Getting rid of Munoz and not Hall. Because especially with the blank, I think that's an easy another player to be had.
To be fair, Munoz also will have a blank. It's just that he'll have good fixtures till the blank.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the price is also just was a consideration there. But I mean, given the data here, great option. I think it's definitely a time for cheap defenders. Even Arsenal defenders have been pretty uninspiring over the past many weeks. So yeah, no shortage of funds given that cheap defenders, no Haaland, a lot of money in everyone's bank, I suppose.
Yeah, and also because of the doubles, I think people were forced to basically get Trent and like spend big in defense. Not necessarily worked out because cheap defenders are still doing well. But yeah, for one more week with Wolves at home and Villa away, you never know. Trent can.
Is it Reece James that I'm seeing there in the bottom coming up?
Probably because he's a per 90. Did he get an attacking return recently?
I'm not sure, but he is starting every game now, or like he's starting most games. Depending he's fit, might be. Who knows? He's coming up in these charts now all of a sudden.
Yeah, maybe slipping under the radar a bit because yeah, again you never know how long he's going to be fit, how long he'll play, but good to see him if it is reached.
Yeah, he's been missed in these lists.
Yeah, and Kukureya also showing up pretty consistently in these lists from a Chelsea perspective, and Chaloba as well. So yeah, I think
the serious as avoid all of them.
Yeah,
Chelsea don't have a goalkeeper. They're pretty much struggling to get defenders out, so centre backs out. So it's just an avoid.
Yeah, with the tricky fixtures as well. Cool. Moving on to the keepers. Once again, before a double game week, if you're making a keeper transfer, I would just consider either Alisson or Martinez. And neither of them are probably worth it. You probably already have 3 Liverpool players, and I wouldn't switch them around. And Martinez with Villa's defense, I don't think it's worth a transfer for a player who's going to blank in a few weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. And keepers are always quite boring. Definitely with how useful transfers are given what's coming down the line, it's not worth it. I think just keep whoever you have.
Cool. Okay, now let's look at our teams for next week. We'll start with the AI team. I think one clear issue that it has is triple Newcastle playing against City away, which we don't know how it can go. Like City have been a lot better, but defensively still frail. So Isak and Gordon could still do well. And in terms of recommended moves, Gordon to Kluivert is the move that the AI team is considering, or Hall to Kirkes is the other. Those are the 2 alternatives. We'll have to look at Gordon's injury and see if he's actually going to play or not. One clear issue that the AI team has is an overload of players from game week 29. So from next week, we can probably just hyper focus on the non-game week. Like you can just remove game week 29 from the solver and use only the other weeks. That is an option. The way AI team could play the assistant manager chip would have to be only on Emery, because from a EV perspective, it just doesn't make sense to sell Virgil, use a transfer, and get slot only to move slot on next week. So it's basically like using 2 transfers to get 1 manager in. So it's either Emery or nothing. And for that, I'll be looking at FPL reviews, assistant manager projections from Gameweek 36 to 38 and comparing it to 25 to 27. I'd imagine 25 to 27 will come out on top because of the 2 good fixtures in 26 and 27. And also, we can't predict the table for 36 to 38. So it's very likely you'll see the AI team with Emery managing it next week.
Makes sense. Is it just 1 transfer to the AI team?
And the transfer will be either Gordon to Kluivert or Hall to Kirkes. Yeah, just the 1 transfer.
Makes sense. And the first time you played, the manager doesn't count, right? So
yeah.
Basically a free transfer.
Okay. And captain will be Mo Salah.
Yeah, strong team as usual. I think maybe Hall is the weakness here, or Gordon, whoever plays. Gordon maybe not so bad if he starts because City are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
If I were me, I would get rid of Hall before Gordon, unless Gordon's in.
Yeah, and with Emery in the team, it'll basically be 5 doublers, which I think is pretty optimal. Like, I don't think 6 in a week with Villa is that useful. Just a question of what Emery does. If they, like you said, if they get the win against Ipswich, I think you'll get the ceiling. I mean, you'll get the floor and it'll be a pretty comfortable weight. But if they drop points against Ipswich, it could be a disaster.
Yeah.
Moving on to my team. I'm in a very similar situation. Basically, I have 3 Liverpool players already. I have Rodgers. But also, I'm a human manager, so I am considering clearly suboptimal moves like moving Van Dijk to slot. But I think I've talked myself out of it a bit. Again, it's mainly because of the transfers involved in getting him and getting out of him. But the difference for me is that I don't have enough in the bank to directly get Emery. So I'll anyway have to free up some money. And if I do get Emery, then I would like to move him on to Arteta next week. And for that, I will have to generate 1.5 million in the bank anyway. So yeah, I mean, I can't, maybe selling someone like Bruno is an option if I'm not selling Virgil and if I want to get Emery. So yeah, I still have a bunch of options in mind. But yeah, just looking at Bruno and my team, that just popped up. I didn't think of it till now, but I think that seems like the most sensible move because I'm not going to get that money by selling Pedro or Calvert-Lewin. So it would
happen. I mean, you could easily go to like an Mbuemo if you just want some diversity with Brentford.
Yeah, I have to see the price, Bruno to Mbuemo. Or yeah, I can even get another Bournemouth midfielder. I'm not opposed to it.
Go with the double Bournemouth. I think that strengthens the midfield and you can play Emery.
Yeah, and then I'll have enough in the bank to move Emery to whoever I want. Cool. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of having to play Joao Pedro week in, week out. Very frustrating. He got
I mean, if I were you, I think I would probably play Emery because it does feel wasteful to make those transfers to get Virgil out.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll have to be Emery too. Like either Emery or wait till game week 36. In case I want to, in case I have to take a gamble to catch people in my mini leagues. That's the only. And maybe I should play Mikalenko over Pedro. Like Pedro got subbed at halftime as well. So yeah, that's probably something I'll do. But I'm very happy with the overall rank. I think last few weeks my green arrows have meant that I'm reaching the best overall rank of the season yet. It's always a nice feeling to enter game week 30s at the highest rank you've been in so far. That's usually my goal.
Very reasonable. It's pretty much, I mean, in any season where you want to get into the top 100k, 556k at this stage seems very reasonable. I think top 100k is still on for you.
Yeah, and out of the 15 weeks that are left, you have like 7 or 8 chip weeks. So it'll be exciting for sure. A lot of variance. I'm excited to play the manager chip and
get some points then.
Yeah, get some points or who knows, maybe not. Yeah. Cool. moving on to your team now. So you've already got Emery in as well.
Yeah, because for me it was a no-brainer. I don't think managers get
Yeah,
injured, so
yeah.
I did Moist to Emery pretty. Actually, just today. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer for me, so I just did that move. Beyond that, NDI is injured, so leaves me no options really in terms of choosing the rest of the team because I'm not going to play Hall against City. Probably never going to play Greaves. Uh, Captain Salah. I think the team looks okay this week. Sar is pretty uninspiring. Has always been uninspiring. Pickford. I think we saw Everton and Crystal Palace both on the bottom left in terms of defenses. So it seems headed straight for a 0-0. Don't mind that as a Pickford owner, but not really inspired by having Sar.
Not the worst fixture. Everton at home at his price point. Um, yeah, and I think your team looks great. Yeah, like you said, Emery will, like, even if Emery gets sacked tomorrow, you'll still get Villa manager points. In fact, Slot got a red card today, and managers didn't get a -3. Like that kind of defeats the purpose of the chip. I feel they should give that -3. But yeah, yeah, your team looks good. I think your 5 transfers are really reflecting now. You're not having to skimp on any positions, and it looks like you have good. Like, it reminds me of your teams a few seasons ago where you'd have those 8 to 10 million price point midfielders and forwards, like with Isak, Gakpo, Mbuemo, Palma, Salah. Like like it feels like all these players can haul, which is exciting.
Yeah, selling Haaland just gives more variability in who I can get, and that's super helpful, especially to catch up because there's just more options to choose from week to week.
Yeah, and big jump in overall rank as well for you, 500,000. And I think around your rank, that's another, like, everyone is so close together that, like, one good decision, like 500,000, that's a pretty massive jump. So, like, if Emery manages to do the impossible and gets another table bonus, that'll be another half a million. Cool. That brings us to the end of this episode. Yeah, nice. Welcome back to FPL with so much going on. Any last words, Vikas?
Yeah, really missed this. I think pretty excited with still 2 more game weeks of the assistant managership and 3 for you. I think there's a lot of variability going on, a lot of calculations. So interesting times ahead, and wish everyone the best of luck and happy weekend.